demonstrations and the individuals. We have Becky Brasby from Morgan County.
When the art of making cheese first began, one of the steps involved putting the milk into a goat's skin stomach and letting it sit outside for several hours. Well, you will be glad to know we no longer use this method. Good morning, my name is Becky Brasby and I am from Morgan County. Today I'll be showing you the way of cheese and how to make cheese. I'll be showing you the ingredients that you need and the equipment that you will need, and also look at how to make the cheese in 4 easy steps. Before we get started, however, I want to clear up a misconception you might have about making cheese. There are 2 kinds of cheese. First, there is the hard cheese. Now, the hard cheese is named the hard cheese, not only because it's more dense, but also because it's much harder to make. You need special equipment, special ingredients, and a lot of time, a lot of patience. It's more of a precision cheese. That's not the cheese I'll be teaching you to make today. The cheese I will be teaching is called the soft cheese. It is a very easy cheese to make, and I think you'll be surprised how simple it is. Most of the ingredients you'll probably have at your house already. It's very easy, very quick, and the one thing I love about this recipe is it has a lot of variables. So you can run one simple recipe, but you can change it to whatever you like. So if you like your cheese really salty, not very salty, really hard, soft, it has a lot of variables. So you can really make it for the way you like cheese. So first, let's look at the ingredients you're going to need. The first ingredient you're going to need is milk. Now, if you have raw milk, works the best. So if you have a goat that you're milking or a cow that you're milking, or you have a friend that has a goat, talk to them, get some raw milk. It works the best. If you have to buy milk, try to go to a health food store. You want the milk as raw as possible. You want to avoid ultra-preserved milk, because once you get the preservatives in there, then it doesn't react as well in the next phases. You'll also need what I like to call your acid, either vinegar or lemon juice. Either one will work. I've found in the past that vinegar works a little bit faster, but lemon juice will work as well. So if you have a lot of vinegar or a lot of lemon juice, you can get that used up. So either one, it's an either or. Next, you'll also need some salt or some herbs. So whatever herbs you want. If you have an herb garden, you can use those. You want to be able to flavor the cheese when you're done. So those are the ingredients you need. For some of the equipment, you will need a pot to heat the milk in. Obviously, how much milk you start out with, you need to pick a pot according to the size. You'll need a cheesecloth. If you do not have a cheesecloth, you can also use a handkerchief. You want to use something with a thin weave. You don't want to use something thick like a towel. You want to use something thin like a handkerchief. You will also need a couple bowls. One of the bowls you'll use at the end when you're done with the cheese to get the herbs mixed in. And you'll also need what I like to call a drain bowl. Now this bowl, however much milk you start out with, that bowl needs to hold that much liquid. So if you start off with a gallon of milk, your drain bowl needs to at least hold a gallon worth of liquid. So again, it depends on how much milk you're using. You also will need a thermometer, because you're going to be heating the milk and you need to know what temperature the milk is. You'll need some measuring cups. You'll need one that has about a 1/4 or smaller. You don't want a really big measuring cup, you want a smaller measuring cup. And then some teaspoons if you want to, when you come to the salting and herbing. And you'll need some spoons to get. And last of all, I like to use a timer. Okay, that way you can keep track of how long the cheese has been sitting, and some string or yarn. Pretty simple ingredients, pretty simple equipment. You probably already have these around your house. It's just a matter of getting them all collected together to make the cheese. Now I'm going to show you how to make the cheese in 4 simple steps. Heat, separate, drain, and then salt and herb. So let's go ahead and get started. Look at the 4 steps of how to make cheese. The first step is you want to heat the milk. You want to heat the milk to 170 degrees Fahrenheit. 170 degrees Fahrenheit. It can be a little bit off. Try to go a little bit on the high side as opposed to low side. When you're heating the milk, you want to be sure that you don't boil the milk. Keep it at a low temperature, warm it up slowly, get a timer set on it so you don't forget about it. You don't want to boil the milk. It changes the chemical makeup of it. If you do boil the milk, you can still make cheese out of it. It's just a little bit more harder. The cheese will end up more sticky. It's a little bit harder to drain and to separate, but you can still make cheese out of it. If you boil the milk, I would recommend you just make a dip out of it. It makes a very wonderful dip, perfect dip. So you want to get the timer set on that. Hit that heater to 170. And now we're to the second step, which is to separate the milk into what's called curds and whey. Now we need to get our acid out, either the vinegar or the lemon juice. And if you start off with a gallon of milk, you want to put in 1/4 of a cup of vinegar or lemon juice. Again, and then just do it proportionally. So if you have half a gallon of milk, you want to use 1/8 of a cup, etc. So you want to go ahead and get that stirred in there. Just pour it in and start stirring. It'll take a few minutes, and then it will separate into what's called curds and whey. Curds and whey. The curds are these white chunks here. And then the whey is a thin yellow liquid. You just want to keep stirring until you get a nice separation between the curds and the whey. If it has a hard time separating, like you're using boiled milk, you can go ahead and add a little bit more vinegar or lemon juice. You may even let it sit longer. But just want to keep stirring it and wait till you get a good separation where you can clearly see the curds and the whey. Just want to keep stirring and get that stirred in there. So now we're going to separate the curds and the whey even more. And we're going to go to the next step, which is to drain the milk. You want to grab your drain bowl, and you want to line it with your cheesecloth or your handkerchief. Like so. You want to be sure that there's no holes in there, no place where the whey or the milk can slip through. So go ahead and put that in there, and then you want to pour your milk into it, the whole thing, curds and wheys, pour the whole thing in there. Sometimes you'll have to use your spoon to scrape some of the curds out if they stick to the bottom. Just want to get everything out into there. Next, you want to grab the 4 corners of the cloth and you want to pull it up. And what will happen is, as you can see, you have the whey down here and then the curds up here. You're separating them even more. And you want to let the curds hang. I like to hang them for about 10 to 15 minutes. It depends how soft or hard you want the cheese to be. This is where I like to use the yarn. I can get a piece. Get that tied up in there, hang it above your drain bowl, let the whey just continue to drip out. If you're trying to make a soft cheese, like a dip, you don't want to let it hang as long. I'd say around 10 minutes. If you're trying to get a harder cheese and you just want it to stand up on its own, I do it about 15, 20 minutes. If you're using boiled milk, you're going to have to let it hang longer than that, and it'll still be soft and still be sticky. So another variable, however hard you want the cheese. So now the question is, what can you do with the whey? There's a couple things you can do with it. You can use it in baking. If you're making bread, instead of using water, you can put the whey in there. I've heard of some people that make lemonade out of it. I haven't done that. What we like to do with our whey is we have 3 pigs behind our house. And they are more than happy to get the whey off our hands. So now we have the curds in its own bag. We have it completely separated. So now we want to, at this point, if you want, you could just stop. You don't have to salt and herb the cheese if you don't want to. I always do because otherwise it tastes very bland. If you decide you don't want to salt or herb the cheese, it works very well in stir fries. You can cut it up, put it in the stir fry, and it absorbs the flavor of the stir fry. But I like to salt and herb mine. So at this point, you can basically do whatever you want. If you like it really salty, if you like basil. I usually found that if you start with a gallon of milk, about 1 teaspoon of salt works really well, and then add your herbs after that. A mixture I found works really well is you put in some garlic salt, and then you put in some sage. Again, if you're starting with a gallon, you use teaspoons. Teaspoon of, go ahead and put that in there, and then a little bit of thyme, just a little pinch of thyme, not very much. Go ahead and put that in there. Then you want to get it all stirred up. Make sure that all the herbs and all the salt get thoroughly mixed throughout the cheese. And then when you have it all mixed in, you can taste it, see if you like it or not. You can add more if you want to. Word of caution is, once you add the salt and the herbs, The longer it sits in the refrigerator, the stronger the taste will become. So if it tastes really strong now, it'll taste even stronger in a week. So just something to bear in mind. Also, if you're using fresh herbs tend to have more flavor, and so you don't need to use as many fresh herbs. So then once you get that done, put it into a container. I like to label it, put the date on it, put it in the refrigerator, wait for it to cool, and you are done. So that is how you make soft cheese in 4 easy steps. Number 1 is you want to heat the milk, then you want to separate the milk into curds and whey, salt the milk, drain the milk, and then salt it. Pretty simple, right? Probably easier than you were expecting. If you find you really enjoy making cheese, and you want to get more serious about it, want to get into some more complicated cheeses, I recommend you go to cheesemaking.com. It's a wonderful website. I go there all the time. They have ingredients and equipment, and they also have recipes for you to try with pictures with them. Breaks it all down into the different steps. So, cheesemaking.com. Today, I have shown you how to make simple cheese. I've showed you the ingredients that you need to make the cheese, and also I've shown you the equipment you will need to make the cheese, and how to make the cheese in 4 easy steps, and some resources you can go to if you find you enjoy making cheese. I hope you enjoyed this demonstration, and now you know the way of cheese. Thank you for your time. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
If you have a choice, which would you rather use in your recipe, vinegar or lemon juice, and why?
The question is, if I had a choice, would I rather use lemon juice or vinegar? I would rather use vinegar. I found that it works much quicker. It separates the milk into curds and whey faster. That's what I found in my experience. If you use lemon juice, it will separate. It just takes a little bit more time. It doesn't do it quite as fast. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Does the level of humidity affect the time used to make the cheese?
The question was, does the level of humidity affect the time it takes to make the cheese? When it comes to yes, it will affect how you make the cheese. Especially when it comes to the draining process, if you're in a higher humidity, it will take longer for all that whey to drain out. If you're in like here, where there's not a lot of humidity, then it will drain out much faster than if you're in a higher humidity. Are there any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
How long can you keep the cheese in the refrigerator?
How long can you keep the cheese in the refrigerator? It will keep quite a long time. I always eat it before it goes bad. I find that I guess a couple of weeks. That's what my guess would be. That's why I like to label it. So if it's been in there a month, you probably want to approach it with caution. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
What's your favorite cheese?
What is my favorite cheese? My favorite cheese to make, or my favorite cheese to eat?
To make.
To make, this cheese is very simple to make, very quick and easy, so I enjoy making this just because it's so easy. Mozzarella cheese is also very easy to make if you have the right ingredients. And I also enjoy eating mozzarella cheese. So I'd say mozzarella cheese would have to be my favorite when it comes to making and how it tastes. Are there any other questions? All right, thank you for your time.